I am Foyleman from Mods Online, and I am here to give you an introduction to the Call of Duty World at War mapping and modding tools. And for this tutorial, I actually have a couple of friends with me. I have Techno2SL is with me. Hello, Techno.
Hello.
And also with me is Welshie. Hello, Welshie.
Hello.
Actually, Welshie you may recognize from Mods on Air. Anyway,
Hello.
back to the tutorial here. These tools that I'm going to show you here, they have recently been released. I can't say just because this is a second go at this tutorial since we are having issues with the tools. So hopefully what I say now will still be relevant in the future. But these tools have recently been released and we're ready to start making our own custom maps and getting into making mods for the Call of Duty World at War game. And I want to give you a very brief introduction into working with the map editor. And while some people are having issues installing and running the game, among a lot of other issues, others may be new to the experience. So to make things easier, I've created this video for you. And in this video, what I want to show you is how to go through the installation process, how to work with the editor for the first time, to create your first map, compile that map into something you can play, and then show it to you, what it looks like, so you actually have something from start to finish. And not only that, but I'm going to do this for both the multiplayer and for the single-player games. Usually I just do single-player, but there's a difference, and I really want to point out that difference. So now I'm going to assume that you have already installed the game. You can see that I have over here. I have the solo co-op and the multiplayer icons on my desk, and that you have played them at least once. You want to jump into the game and jump out is good enough, but we want to make sure we have the initial player configurations files created. So it's just get into the game, get out, and then we can get into making the maps. That's important if you just installed again. And make sure that you have downloaded the tools. All right, I have downloaded them right here. It's a cod_ww_modtools.rar. It's a large file. It might take you a little while. 1.1 gig. I don't know how long it took you guys to download this thing, but I have a good
Absolutely.
connection and it took a while, right?
Took me longer to
Yeah.
extract it.
Yes, that'll be coming up. Uh,
Just worth noting that there is a download link on Mods Online.
yes, you can find a downloads link I have over here. If you need additional help or you want a downloads link, I have one right here. It says right up front, mapping tools download here. Should be easy to follow. But if this is no longer available, if it's like much into the future where we're not concentrating on this particular set of tools, you will always be able to find them into our download section. We'll just move them over into our, not add downloads, which I'm highlighting here, but the downloads right there, as well as some other places. Some other good places for resources, you can go over to the CODWW mod wiki, which is where I'm showing you, and if you go into the mod tools index, and then downloading and installing the tools, and right here they are, you'll see a bunch of links, some mirrors for you to download those tools. So you should be able to get them wherever you need to get them. And of course, if you need additional help, you can, over at Mods Online, we have great forums. People are very friendly and help you quickly, as well as some tutorials available on the left. And membership is free. So, once you have downloaded the tools, you'll be able to get things moving. So why don't we take it off from there? All right. I have actually freshly installed my game, so I will be doing exactly what you're doing. May have to do a little bit of movie magic, I guess it is, where we're going to pause in the middle while these things open up and extract, because these large files take a lot of processing and some time. So depending on your computers, depending on whether or not this will work. And you know what? As I'm saying that, I am coming up with some other thoughts, which I guess I can talk about while the tools are opening. I'm just still opening the RAR file here. Make sure that, I know, really. Make sure that you have downloaded and installed at least .NET 3.5.1. I was told that it was required. Did you guys hear about this too?
Yeah. Well,
I know Welsh
I'm
got it
pretty
from
sure.
me.
Yeah. Well, I discovered it when me and Strider were playing with the tools. You do need it, I think.
Okay. If
It's
you
a
cannot
3.5 version.
you can search the internet for that. If you don't know what you have installed, you can go to Start Control Panel and look at what you have installed. Look at Add Remove Software, and in there it'll tell you what version you have installed. Otherwise, you're going to want to look over. I have a link here, Microsoft.com/net/download.aspx. On here is the .NET 3.5 SP1 available for you. The other thing you want to make sure you have is Call of Duty WAW 1.0.1017 patch set, or at least that version. If you don't have the patch, then this isn't going to work. Make sure you have the latest patch for the game. Very
Just
important.
one thing.
Yeah.
Steam should already be up to date. You don't have to download the patch if you downloaded the game on Steam.
Excellent point. Thanks. I wouldn't even have thought of that.
Because I did. I went and downloaded it and then realized I didn't need to.
Okay, so back to this RAR file, which is finally open for me. We want to extract all these files. The difference with these tools that you may not have noticed is there's no install. It's take this group of files and extract them where you need them. So let me show you how to do that. First of all, now that the RAR file is open, I can hit the extract button. It'll prompt me to where I want to extract it. And I guess since this file is so large, it's even having trouble opening up the extract. My goodness. Okay. And then you want to go to your downloading directory, which mine happens to be C. So that would be C, Program Files, Activision, Call of Duty World at War. And I'm checking to make sure that's it right in there, right? Call of Duty World at War. That's it. Okay, so that's where you want to extract it. Make sure that you have this button selected. All files, folders, and current folder. In other words, you want to extract all of them, not just like one that you may have selected at the time when you click that extract button. Okay, I'm going to hit the extract button, and this is where that little bit of a movie magic might come in handy because it's going to take a little while. So, we'll be right back.
After these messages.
Alright, so thanks to that little clip, we are now done in extracting those files. Some people have reported 30 minutes. I think mine was, 10, 15 minutes, something like that. Still long enough that you don't want to just sit there and listen to us blabber on about nothing.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here we go. I'm done extracting the tools from the RAR file here, so I can close that up. I'm done with that. And I can create a shortcut. And I can create a shortcut. I'm going to have to edit that a little bit. So I'm going to actually edit what I'm saying right now so you know what I was doing. So now I can, now that I'm done with the tools, I can go ahead and create a shortcut to the launcher because we didn't have an install file. It did not necessarily create a shortcut for us to access it. And if you're going to get into this mapping, you're going to find it addictive and you're going to find yourself searching for that launcher file all the time. Just put it on your desktop. And to do that, we are going to go over to where we just extracted the files. We're going to head over to our install drive, which is our C drive, then head into Program Files, head into Activision, Call of Duty World at War, in the bin folder, okay, that's where it changes up, and here's Launcher, launcher.exe. And I want you to right-click on that and send to desktop so that we have a shortcut there to quickly access it, and it put it on to my, right up there. There we go. Had to find where it put that little icon for me. So there. All right. So now we're ready to start getting into things. And so let's close up this window. Let's actually start the launcher program. Now, before we can actually get into making maps using Radiant and looking at all these maps and compiling our level and all that kind of stuff, first thing we have to do is we have to hit the converter. Because this converter is going to convert it's going to extract necessary files, convert things so that we can actually access them from the editor itself.
I saw a lot of people getting errors because they hadn't done this.
Okay.
Just the textures and everything wasn't loading and things like that.
That's primarily what we're talking about doing here. I think most of it is textures. I can see right now it's saying it's converting material, 3 of 45, 5 of 45, and going on from there. Alright, so the converter just finished here, and you'll notice though at the end I did get this red line that says error. It says error, DLL version number does not match converter version. Don't worry about it. Everybody gets that error. It's not something you have to be concerned with. Okay. So now that we have actually converted all the assets that we need, we can get ready to start making this first map that we're going to do. Now, like I said in the beginning, I'm going to start with a multiplayer map, and then I'm going to jump into creating a single player map. Now, you may be tempted, if you've ever done any mapping before, to just close this up, open up Radiant on its own, and then just start making a map and save it. That doesn't work. Too many posts are all over the forum saying, I did this and this, and it turns out they didn't create the map using this button right here, Create Map. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start by creating our map right here. So click the Create Map. We're going to use the multiplayer version, not the single player this time. Leave the MP underscore right where it is. And let's create our first map, and I am going to call this one junk. I'm going to call it MP underscore junk. And I'm doing that actually for a reason, because I always, well, sometimes it's a test map, but I always create some sort of test little piece of junk that I can do all my experimenting in, because that way you can get an idea of you can test this out, you can test that out, and then you don't have to worry about destroying your own map, you know, the thing that you've been working weeks on because you did something that just blew it apart. Well, this little piece of junk, this little junk map allows you to jump in, do a quick compile, test it out, does it work, does it not work, and then you can reenact everything that you did in the other map. If not, just copy and paste it. So that's what I like to do. And now that we have already created our MP junk, we don't have to select it next, but what we want to do is we want to open up the Radiant editor. And we do that just by clicking this Radiant button. There are other ways around, as what Techno was mentioning before. What you said, you skipped this whole launcher to begin with, don't you?
Say that again.
To access Radiant, you don't actually use the launcher.
No, use the launcher. Always use the launcher.
Okay.
To access Radiant. Always use the launcher to access Radiant. Don't use the launcher to access the game.
I guess he's talking from all those problems that other people keep coming up with.
Yeah.
All right. And actually this time, mine is opening a full screen, which means that it's remembering all my previous settings from when before I uninstalled and reinstalled. It should have opened up in a window mode, and it should have said, please select your project file. And since it did not, please note that you need to select the project file. It should have already opened up into the folder that you needed, which was C program files, Activision Call of Duty World at War, /bin/ well, here would be your project file, codwaw.prj. Select that file, and then this Radiant program will open up for you. And I've adjusted mine a little bit, but let me get into a quick explanation of what you're looking at here. You got to remember that whenever you're working with a map in or level, or working with a game in general, the game world is three-dimensional, which means you don't just have an up, down, left, right. You know, that would be 2 dimensions. You also have the third dimension. So you have, think of it like forward, back, left, right, and up and down. And that creates all your axis points, all the points in which, all the 3 dimensions within the game. And how would you, it's hard to conceive, how would you actually like sculpt or build something on the computer, which is a 2D screen, in a 3D world? Well, they do that by allowing you to work within the different 2D planes. So in this case, the first window that I see right here is my XY top view. I'm looking down the Z axis, you can see a little letter Z right there in the middle, from the top. So that's one dimension. And you would think, well, what about the other dimensions? Well, there's a way for me to flip through them. But before I hit that, I want you to look over on the left side, and you see this long, skinny one, and that's your Z window. So really, this is all 3 dimensions. You have X, Y, and Z. But if you wanted to flip through them, which we'll do later on in the editor anyways, you would hold down the Control and hit the Tab key. And that lets me switch to XZ front, again to YZ side, and one more time, I'm back at the top. Now, over here on the right, I have a 3D window, and when we start building stuff, you're going to actually see a rough of what the map could look like. It's a really rough, it's an editor version, so that you can also see the tools and stuff that you're working with, but it helps you select and move around the map so that you can visually get an idea of what you're working on. And then over here on the bottom right are all my textures. Now, right up, if you find that once you load this up, things feel like they're really sluggish and running slow, perhaps you have an older computer or something like that, reducing the amount of texture information that's loading with the editor can actually help you. And you can do that by going up to this menu up here at the top and hitting Textures. And the first thing you can do is, I know it's in everyone, so I'm looking for it. You can change the texture resolution. Right now it's at normal, and you can change it to low. And the other thing you can do is you can lower the texture window scale. That actually does help. If you lower it to, say, 10%, mine's default 25%, which is the size of the texture you see right here. And by making it smaller, you're not showing as much, and it's easier to load up. That texture resolution really does make a difference. All right, so
you might want to change your render method as well, just so you can see the map better.
the render method, which is over in where?
Just on the same menu, textures, go down to render method. If you can't see things very well, You can change it, do full bright or whatever you need.
Oh, that's for the three. That actually affects the textures.
Yeah, it affects how you see the world.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes, that does help because you're not loading the texture on the 3D world area, right? Yeah.
You can also do Control and the key next onto the left of Z. I forget what it's actually. It's the backslash, and what that actually does is it doesn't render the whole thing in the 3D window.
Okay, I think that may be exclusive to your kind of keyboard because you said the
Cubic
letter
clip
Z.
the camera view.
By the question mark for me, maybe. I know that the keyboard in the UK, which is where you're located, is sometimes slightly different than the one in the US. Craziness. But you're talking about the / I think.
Yeah, it might be
Okay.
/ view. It's backslash. Okay.
Okay.
But what
Okay.
it does, it just shows you what you're actually looking at instead of the whole map at once.
Oh, okay.
So if you've got quite a large map and
Yeah.
as you move around, it's kind of like slow. You can hit that, and it'll only show you what you're looking at.
All right.
Which is quite useful.
Thanks. Okay. So let's get into actually working on the map that we just created using the launcher. Like I said, you can't just start making your map here and save it. It will not work. There are files that were created when you clicked on Create Map that are necessary to make everything work together. So I'm going to go to the Open here. I could do File Open. I could hit the Open or Control-O, all the same thing. And you'll see right away it brings me up to the list of maps that are available in here. And the MP Junk, the one that I just created, is here. So I'll click Open. It'll open up, and you'll see actually there's already stuff in here. There's already stuff in my window. Now what I'll do is I'll use the mouse wheel to scroll out so that I can see a bigger view here. If I want to move around here, I can right-click and hold and drag it around so I can move things around in my 2D window. I can also, in the 3D window over here on the right, if I right-click and hold it and move the mouse forward, I move forward. And move it back, I move back, and I turn. And if I hold down the Control key, I move up and down and strafe. So that's pretty much all you're going to need to know in order to move around. But if you want, you can get crazy and start using the old school methods that you may hear me using throughout the tutorial. Arrow keys to turn, move forward and back, A to look up, Z to look down, that kind of stuff. There are a bunch of commands that you can get, and hopefully they'll be available in this help window command list. Not as easy to find. Not a lot of help in there. All right. And now remember I told you that you can switch around in this 2D view so that you can see the different sides. So let me do that real quick here for you again with something in the map. I'll hit Control Tab. Now I'm looking at it. Moving around there. I'm looking at it from the side, from the front. Do it again. Then I'm looking at it from the side. And one more time from the top. All right? Now you'll be like, oh, but my map's already got stuff in it. What do I do? Let's get rid of it because we're going to create a whole brand new map. And to get rid of it, we're going to select it all and then delete it. And the way to do that is hit the letter I key. That selects everything. And then hit the backspace to delete. The delete key does not delete. The backspace does. Now we have a nice clean area to work. And I am going to start, or I'm about to start making my first level. In making your levels, what you want to do is you want to work with what's called the caulk texture. It is a base texture. What it does is it does not have a lot of information, it does not take up many, if any, resources of your computer. Because if you think about it, whenever you're working with something, whenever you're in a game, you can never see like behind certain walls. So why would you want to display a texture that's on the other side of the wall? You wouldn't want to, because that texture has to load into the memory and it has to take up some space. So why would we want to make our map run a little less than what it really could run? So if we work with the caulk texture, that solves that problem, as well as keeping everything nice and solid, which I'll also get into in a moment. So let's get that caulk texture up here. We click on Textures, go to either Usage, which you'll see right here is Tools, or Locale also has tools in it. They both bring up the same set of tools here. When I click that, new textures over on the bottom right here load up, and one of them is caulk. So select that, and now we're ready to start making our map. I am going to zoom into the center area here where we were, and I'm going to draw out a box. I'm going to draw a brush here. And they're called brushes. I think they're called brushes because in a 3D, because this is our artist palette. And in a 3D world, we have to draw 3D brushes, something with some sort of shape. And in this case, it happens to be a square. So I think that's why the term brush came up with. So I'm going to left click drag. You see I'm creating something with red lines around it, and then let go. And now I have created a brush, and actually look over here on the right, you can see it in that 3D window. And I want to make it a specific size for the sake of this tutorial. I don't want it to be too big that that it takes a long time to compile and run around and do stuff in, and I don't want it to be too small. I want to actually be able to move around in it. So I think something that's 512 units, we call the measurement in here units in the 3D world, by 512 units in width and length here. So I'm going to make these two numbers, which you see here on mine is 440 by 384. I'm going to click outside and stretch that wall out to that bottom number says 512. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stretch outside. There's my 512. Now I'm going to center this up just because I like to keep things orderly. And actually there's a little more to it, but that's something for optimization and other kind of tutorials for you. And then I want to change the height because right now it's just too skinny for anything to happen. And I'm going to do that over here in this little tiny Z window. And I'm going to go up to the 128 mark so that my height is 128. 128 is an excellent height to work with within these games. And for the sake of this tutorial, I will be using a controversial method. I have to point this out. Very important.
Oh, no.
Yes. I will be using what is known as the hollow tool. And what the hollow tool does is allows me to create this, take this solid block and turn it, make it hollow so that it looks more like a room. But some things can go wrong in doing this, which is why it's very controversial. More so in the past than in the present. And as I'm saying that, a ding, I don't know if you heard the ding happen. And what happened, if you look down here in this little console, my map was automatically saved. Autosave is turned on. So what that does is it saves a copy of the map you're working on with a mp_junk.autosave 1. So if anything does go wrong, like your whole computer crashes, you may have a workable backup by just renaming that autosave 1 to map. And then you can open it up and work with it. All right. Back to the controversial method. It turns out that in this editor, the Radiant editor, sometimes, I'd say about 90% of the time, if you hollow out a square brush, after doing a little manipulation after the hollow, you will be okay. 10% of the time of hollowing out a square brush, you will find errors pop up that just don't make sense, and sometimes you can never fix. If you use, if you ever use this tool, I'm highlighting over it, it's a CSG subtraction, 10% of the time, it'll work. The rest of the percent of the time, in Radiant, Hammer seems to be more stable. That's with the Half-Life game. But in this Radiant, it causes errors. Errors that you can't fix. Errors that'll screw your map up so bad that you'll have to start over. And we don't want that to happen. And really, everything that these tools can do, you can do without those tools. And but for the sake of this tutorial, it's easier for me to show you what we're doing and then show you how to create it manually. So I'm going to start with the hollow tool. So with that in mind, I am going to take this world and I'm going to make it one grid line higher and lower than 128 because I want the inside of my hollowed box to be 128. And these grid lines, if I zoom in, you can see each one of these lines is actually 8 units apart. There's actually 8 little lines in that. How I know that is if I look down here on the bottom right, it says G:8.0. And I could change that grid line to move around. I can use the bracket keys on my keyboard, which are next to the P, the letter P there, and I can change it. You can see there's 4, there's 2, there's 1, and I can keep changing it around. 8's a perfect number to work with right now, especially for this tutorial. I suggest that you never turn off this snap to grid option, because right now if you see if I click, it snaps to that grid. I really suggest you don't turn it off because it can cause errors that are really hard to find. And unless you're working with something really close up, you shouldn't be in grid 1 either, because it's just too easy to make a little nudge and screw up. Okay. Now we're ready to hollow out our little box here. So I'm going to hit the hollow key, and you can see, boom, there we go. All hollow. We have walls and ceiling and roof, and if I move in on my 3D window, I'll go inside, and I have a room. But you'll also look in this corner. Let me zoom in. Everything's overlapping, and that's where one of the problems comes up with this thing. So we got to fix that. Hit the escape key. You'll find escape key is your friend. You'll use it a lot because you don't want to accidentally screw up something else when you're working with something. And I'm going to hold down the shift key and left click on this wall over here. So you see I selected this whole wall here. And I want to make it so that it fits inside. So I'm going to select outside and drag it in so it fits there. Let me zoom in for you with the mouse wheel and see. And then I'll zoom out with the mouse wheel, and I want to do the same thing on the bottom. And it's very important that you don't accidentally move it too far away. Let me move over to that corner and show you. If I accidentally do this, which is why you want to make sure that snap to grid is on, because if this is just a tiny bit of a hole, when you go to compile your level, you're going to end up with errors, and it's going to leak. Leak is one of the errors. And what that means is whenever the level compiles, it takes, think of your light. The light is considered an entity. And so is a player spawn, and all your other little models and that. Those are entities, but they're all roughly compiled the same. And it compiles light in a way that what it does is it takes the point of light. It says light comes from here and goes in this direction and bounces just like real light off of something else, and it bounces about 5-10 times whatever the compiler is set up to bounce. And if at any point it finds a way through this little hole, it will leak into space, and the computer can't compile the idea of light going on forever. It gets confused and breaks down. So that's why you want to make sure that there is no leak, no little hole here. So I'm going to seal that up, make sure that's good, and then I want to go back and I want to do my other wall here. So I'm going to hit escape to deselect that wall, and I'll shift click to get that wall. I left click and drag my map a little so I can see what I'm doing a little better, and I'm going to move that wall in. And then I want to fix the overlapping with the ceiling and the walls, and I'm going to do that by selecting all the wall brushes. I can do all brushes at the same time if I want. So shift click, which is why you want to make sure you hit escape when you go to make another change later. And now there's all my walls, and then from the Z window, or by hitting the control tab and looking at it from the I'm sorry, I can lower it to under the ceiling wall and above the floor, and there you go. Hit escape, and now I have a box, a room. But it looks not like a room with all this caulk all over the place, which means there's no texture. We got to make it look good. We got to make it look like something. So let's get into some texturing. Let's put some textures on the walls here. I'm going to go up to textures, and I'm going to pick just something for the sake of the tutorial for the wall. Let's go interior wall. Let those load up down here.
Make sure it's not a decal. Definitely not a decal. Yeah.
And believe it or not, when I just did that, I have absolutely no textures showing up. And I think it's because I picked locale tools. See, maybe that's why you don't want to use locale. All right, that's a good point there. All right, textures, usage, interior wall, locale, all. All right, there we go. And I'm going to scroll down and pick a wall that looks like a wall. This looks like a wall. So I'll select that texture. Nothing else is selected in my map, notice. Because if it is, it'll get that texture instantly. And I want to apply the texture to just this wall. Not the outside, but just the surface. And to do that, we want to hold down, it was a Control, Shift, and then I'm going to click the middle mouse button and apply it there. Now if I go outside the wall, you'll see no texture. I go inside, texture. And there's another way we can apply it, actually, is if I want to, I can select the surface first by Control, Shift, click. You can look at my white outline, only the faces selected. If I had the whole thing selected with a shift click, you would see it looks three-dimensional now. So I'll hit escape, I'll control shift click, that's the surface, and I'll click the texture I want to apply, and it applies the texture for me. And then I'm going to, with this texture selected, I am going to control shift middle mouse the other two walls. And now let's find ourselves a floor and a ceiling. Let's go to textures, usage, ceiling. We'll do ceiling first, I guess. And here's one right here in the Berlin ceilings paint. And you notice I didn't hit the escape key. You see, that's why you want to hit the escape key. Because I just put the wall on the ceiling on the wall, right? Okay. So let's apply it to shift, control shift middle mouse key. I'm going to escape, and I'm going to select, let's see, select the wall I want to fix, and I want to get back to that textures, usage, interior wall, and find that texture I got right here. Fix the wall, escape, and nothing selected. That's the better way to go. And textures, usage, I already did the ceiling. I want to do the ground or the floor. Let's find something that looks tiled. Here's a tile. Sure, looks good. Click it, Control, Shift, middle mouse, done. I'll look outside again. It's still all caulked on the outside, no extra memory being eaten up. Inside, I got a nice looking room. But what I don't have in this room is two very important things. One, a way to get in here, called a spawn point, and two, a way to see what's in here, called light. Alright, so I'm going to escape, make sure nothing's accidentally selected. And I'm going to hit Control-Tab until I'm looking from the top down. And now I want to put in my player spawn point. Now I said I was going to be making a multiplayer map. And so for a multiplayer map, what I want to do is I want to right-click to find my entities. And in here, for multiplayer, go to MP. And then, to avoid confusion, whenever you're starting a map, I'm going to put in two spawn points. I'm going to put in regular deathmatch spawn point, because I'm going to make a deathmatch game. And when I do that, you see this little spawn player comes up, and I'm going to put him over here in the corner. Well, that corner's good. And I'm going to make sure he's not sticking in the floor. We don't want him in the floor. He's going to be stuck in the floor. And that could also cause a leak because he's outside the area, right? We talked about that. So let's fix that by either in the Z window, moving him inside the area, or by Control-Tab, so that you move him around in that way, okay? And then I'm going to hit Escape. And to avoid problems, I'm going to also add Team Deathmatch, just in case you accidentally start a Team Deathmatch game. And we right-click, go to MP, TDM, and I have to actually add all three, don't I? Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I have to add the starting points, and I have to add the regular spawn, the respawn. So let's do the allies start first. I'll put that here, just because it's a good place. Let's make sure it's not in the floor. Okay, Escape, so that when I right-click and add it, it doesn't change the one I have selected. I'm going to add MP, TDM, and I just did allies. I want to do axes. Move that over here, and make sure he's not in the floor. And one more, Escape, right here. I'm going to go MP, TDM. I'm getting confusing myself here. And putting it in, and make sure he's not sticking in the floor. Now I have all the spawn points I need for the purpose of this tutorial. You can also do SD and all those other game types, CTF later.
Global intermission.
Yes, I do need the global intermission. And the global intermission is basically what you see as while the game's loading, isn't it?
It's when you, in Spectator, where you start off.
Right. Yeah.
And as a spectator, I'm going to put it right in the middle of these guys. So right-click, and I need that intermission. MP, global intermission. Pop it right in the middle of all these. Why not? Keep them all together. And I'm going to raise it up in the air a little bit. Now, there's something else that's interesting about this. Notice that I haven't done anything to my spawn points. I haven't said, when I spawn, the player faces in this direction. We should actually go ahead and do that. We should make sure that the players are not facing the corner when they spawn, because that's just crazy. So I'm going to hit the letter N key to bring up the entity editor. There it is. And I can actually take a look at my map and look at these numbered things on the bottom left of this little entity window and say, here's my player, and I want him to face that corner over there. So that would be this direction, 315. Click that, and look at that. A little arrow pops up and says it's pointing that way. So my global intermission is pointing that way. And I want to do that for all the others too. So I'm going to escape, and in the 3D window, so I don't accidentally select something other than what I'm trying to do, which is why the 3D window is great, I'm going to select another player. But what else I can do is I can affect all of the spawn points at the same time with the specific setting by selecting them all, like we did our walls, and then at the same time press the direction, and they all change at the same time. I'll hit escape. Now I have all my spawn points in here like I talked about, but what we're missing is light, remember? So let's go ahead and right click and go to light and add a light in here. All right, I'm going to put it right over there. And here's that weird shape, that weird square-looking thing that we were talking about. Techbell was bringing up that weird cube-looking thing.
Just ignore it for now.
Just ignore it, yeah. And make sure the light is not on the floor, but actually on the ceiling, because that makes more sense to most people. And then I want to put a couple more lights in here. So what I'm going to do is instead of just creating new lights, I'm going to copy the one I have. And to copy, you hit the space bar, and you see it made a little offset, so I'm going to drag it over here. And I'm going to put another one over in this corner. I'll hit the space bar. And to make this one more interesting, why don't we actually change the color of the light? Because right now it's just white. It's kind of boring. But I can change it. I can change it either from the entity editor. If I hit the N key, I can look at color and click on color. And if I double click it, it brings up this color chart. Or, let me get out of this entity editor. And that was weird. I had the launcher window pop up in front of me. Or I can hit the K key, which is instantly bring you to the color. And let's make it not red. Let's make it blue. Blue. Sure, blue. Okay. And look, even in the editor, it looks blue. Very cool. Okay. And I should put a... I'm not going to put a light over our guys. I'll leave it dark over there. Hit escape. A couple more things we want to do now. Now that we have the lights in here, we have a place to spawn. There is an issue of things looking red. I guess it's the best way to put it, right? Things look red. And that's because things aren't... because the light isn't being properly calculated within this area. Specifically, I'm talking about reflections and... Yeah, it's really, I think it all has to do with reflections, doesn't it? There's two things that we need to do. First thing we want to do to fix this problem is we want to make sure we have a reflection probe in here. I'm going to put it's this really small room. One reflection probe right in the middle would be good. And later you should check the forums and that on how to properly place these, because there's all kinds of opinions and methods of putting them in. Such as they should go in dark corners and they should go in specific areas that make most sense. And really it's an optimization technique too, and the way things look. So some of it's trial and error. So I'm going to right click the center of my map, and I'm going to put in a reflection probe here. And I want to try and put it, I'm going to hit Control Tab, I want to try and put it right around where the player's head is. So here, the player's head's probably right around here. I'm going to put it right there because that's where he's going to be seeing the reflections from. So that's where the reflection probe should be. That's all I have to do with that. Hit escape. And one more thing we want to put in here for proper light calculation is a light grid. Something that says calculate the light in here through this grid work, blah, blah, blah. All right. And to do that, we have to create a brush with a specific texture. So escape, nothing selected. Okay, and let's go up to textures, tools, usage, tools. And we want to find in here, it's called light grid volume. I'm going to select that texture, and then I'm going to create a brush that completely fills my room so that everything is properly calculated. And that also includes the height as well as the width, length, and all that kind of stuff. And if let me change the view here so that you can see, it looks like a brush with this light, with this weird texture on it. That's it. Okay, escape, save. Is that it, guys? I've got a room, player spawns, lights, reflection probe, light grid map. I think I'm good.
I think so.
Yeah.
Try and find out.
Yeah, that's right. Now we'll find out. We've made our map. I can close out the editor, but we can't play it yet because we have to turn it into something that's playable. And that's usually called the BSP process, binary space partition, if you care to know. And basically what that means is it compiles it in three primary steps. There's the BSP, which takes this map file, which is really just a text file that says things are located here, these points are here and here and there and there, and it takes it and turns it into something that the game can understand, called the BSP. That's why it's called the BSP process, really. The second step is it goes into lighting. It goes into taking these lights and calculating a light goes from here, bounces there, and it's all this calculation work that, depending on the size of your map and the number of lights you have in there, is really going to depend on how much time this takes. Third step is the viz process. Now, the viz process is actually a process of optimizing your map automatically. I mean, there's a lot of steps that you can take to optimize your map, but this does it as best it can based on some logarithms. It divides your maps into areas, and these areas say a player can see this when he's here, so he doesn't see the entire world all at the exact same time, which would be overwhelming to your computer, not just you. Okay, so now we're ready to compile our map. So you want to select your map, and you want to check off the boxes called compile BSP, compile lights, compile viz, I just said that. Compile reflections, we put a reflections probe in there. We want to make sure our reflections and everything looks good. Because if you do not put these in, that environmental, the reflections probe and that, things will look red. And if you don't have, what is it? I think the area, the light grid will cause you to have things look rainbowy.
Yeah, like a multicolored sort of.
Yeah. Very important to build fast files. That's going to create the file that is used by the game in this particular game. We don't need BSP info. We don't need connect paths. We don't need run map after compile. Don't do that. And I don't know, people aren't sure, so we do it anyways. Models collect dots. We want to check that box off, right? We don't really know if that's necessary, do we yet? No. Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Just tick it anyway.
Yeah, just tick it. And then hit compile level. There it goes. It's off and running, and it's doing all those processes that I talked about. And this may take a moment. Right now you see the Call of Duty game starting up, but if you look in this upper left-hand corner real quick, where is it? Come on, I'm waiting for it to come up. It should start flashing like a bunch of images.
If you actually watch the launcher down the bottom left-hand corner, there's a small box that tells you what process is running.
Oh yeah, I can't show that because my window's covering it right now. And actually it's froze. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Oh yeah, there it is. It says link or PC.
Yeah. A lot of people tend to close it off thinking it's done because it's not like the console, the log console, is not moving. But if you actually look at that box, it'll tell you what it's doing.
Guys,
so it'll say no active process when it's done.
Yeah, exactly. Right now it says stop console process.
Yeah, don't do anything until it says no active process.
An error popped up and said we forgot something. So I'm actually going to stop the console process right now.
What did it say?
GSC is missing. We forgot the GSC.
Yeah.
That was very foolish of us. Okay. The GSC is a very, very necessary file for multiplayer maps. It's automatically created for single-player maps. Don't ask me why.
I think if you don't have one as well, you won't get sound in multiplayer.
Oh, very possible, but I think you have a lot more issues than just that.
Yeah,
so
it's one of the things that will make you not have sound, though.
Yeah, so we need to create that GSC file, and the best way to do it is to go over to your File Explorer, and you want to create the text file first, and then rename it, and then open it up and edit it. If you do it in another way, like if you open up Notepad, you need a plain text editor to do this, by the way, and then you save it from Notepad. Some people will experience that their file is saved as .gsc.txt, and that doesn't work either. This method helps to avoid that. Helps. I'm not going to say that it solves it. So go to your installation directory, which is C. Go to Program Files, Activision, Call of Duty World at War, and then you want to go into the raw folder, and then you want to go into maps. Where's my maps? Then go into, didn't open, there we go, and then MP, because of multiplayer, and then right in here we can create our file, which is going to be the same name as our map with a different extension. So right click and say new, come on, there we go, text file, not any of these others, text document. And then here it automatically prompts me to rename it, and I'm going to name it MP underscore junk. That's right, I called this junk. Dot GSC. Yes, I want to change it. There we go. And now I can open this up in Notepad. So if I double click it, what's it going to open up in by? It's going to say, I don't know what to do with this file. So I'm going to select a program from a list, say OK, and I'm going to tell it to open in Notepad. It's very important they use Notepad because it is a plain text editor. You don't want any of that formatting from Word or Microsoft Word or whatever you think it works. No, plain old text, Notepad. Okay. Yes, every time I see GSC, let's open up in Notepad. Give it a second. Oh, what am I waiting for? There's nothing in it. Okay. And we want to create our GSC. And the GSC that I like to create, I'm going to copy it from something else I have open and paste it in here. Hopefully you can see this. I'll try and read it off quickly for you. It is main, M-A-I-N-E, no E at the end. What the hell am I saying? M-A-I-N with these brackets here, then another curly bracket, and it's going to say maps, MP, load, main. And really, this is available in the forums and also in some tutorials. If you cannot read this, I suggest you go over there to look it up because trying to read through this for you, it's probably just going to be more confusing. Agreed?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. File, save. Now we've created the GSC file that we just saw that error pop up. Yeah?
You could just provide one with a download for this.
Okay.
If you really have to.
You got it. They're going to get my junk and my other piece of junk. No, really. It'll be good. Okay. And now we can close that out and we can recompile our level. See, no active processes. There's that window that Welshie was talking about a moment ago. And I'll hit compile level. because we still have MP junk selected. Okay, it's compiling through. Pops open this window, and it should do my reflections. There's my reflections. All right, I didn't get an error this time that said the GSC was missing. Yay. It says physics present, BIA not found. We don't know what that is. So it doesn't seem to, well, we don't know if it's causing some other issues, but all right, don't worry about that. Okay, and actually I got a couple of other errors here, which I think are also common. It says zone source English asset list localized common MP CSV not found, as well as the MP type specific CSV not found. That sound common? Because if I remember, and I also have some others not found.
I usually get quite a few that aren't things that aren't found.
Well, when we go to play the level, I guess that's when we're going to find out whether or not this makes a difference.
If it works or not, yeah.
That's right. So we're now done. And while we could go to run game and select a method of running our game from here, after discussing this more with Techno, I think Techno's right in saying, don't even use this. You should just run it right from the game itself. And I'm going to show you how to do that, because this can cause errors to pop up, such as some sort of weapon not being found and stuff, and it was very confusing. And as soon as I decided to do it right from the game, instead of from this run command, it worked. I didn't have the same problem. All right, with the map compiled, we can now load it up into the multiplayer game. So I'm going to locate and start up the multiplayer game, not the single-player game, because we just made a multiplayer map. And in order to find the map to play, I have to actually select mods, MP user maps. Otherwise, it won't actually find the map that you need. So we have to load up this kind of mod. Actually, I find it kind of annoying that you have to do that. Then you want to open up the console by pressing the tilde key, and that is the key next to the number 1. So I press that, and up comes this little thing, this little console-looking thing at the top. And in here, I am going to type map space mp underscore junk. Hit enter, and it's going to load up the map for me. Waiting for it, setting up the game. And we don't have a mini-map in there. I'll just auto-sign and pick up a gun. And there it is. There's our match. 5, 4, and counting down. And there it is. This is the map we just made.
Da-da-da.
Yeah. Da-da, the famous Welshie da-da. And there's the blue light that we put in here. The guns sounds work. One of the things that doesn't work, though, is here I am sprinting. I'm going to keep sprinting. I don't breathe heavy after I'm done sprinting. It's like some sounds are missing. That's a whole issue with that Treyarch has to solve. I don't know what the heck's going on with that. I can switch weapons, I can shoot that, and you can actually play test this with a friend. Something that Techno and I did before, because Welshie was having some connection issues.
Yeah, I think it's a Steam issue.
Yeah, very well could be. Okay. So I'm done with that. I'm going to escape my way out, and and leave game. Yes, okay. And then what I want to do for you now is I want to quickly run through the idea of making a single-player map, because there's a slight difference in how this is done. And I figure rather than just trying to quickly brush it off and say this is how you do it, boom, done, I want to quickly show you as best as I can. And it'll also give you a quick rundown on how to actually make that map all over again. So here we go. We need to create a new map, single-player map, right here. And I'm going to call it just junk instead of MP junk. No MP for single-player maps. Click OK. That creates all the files we need to create the map. Click Radiant and open up Radiant from here. Waiting for Radiant to do its thing. And as soon as Radiant opens, I want you to go to File Open, or click that Open Envelope, or even Control-O to open up the file that we just created. Control-O, hit not MP junk, which I keep feeling like I need to open, junk instead. Here's the map that we don't need. I'm using my mouse wheel to scroll out, and then I'm going to hit I to select all, backspace to delete. And then I'm going to start, look for that center. There's the center. There's a letter Z that tells me my center's there. And I am going to create a map in here. I need to select my texture, usage, tools, not locale tools, we learned that before, and draw out 512 by 512. Ooh, almost got it on my first try there. Center up the map, and make that height 128 pixels high on the inside, because I'm going to use that ridiculous tool again. Hollow, there you go. And I actually... Oh, there it is. And actually, Techno, what was that method that you mentioned before that allows me to center in where I'm looking? The camera.
Control middle click.
Control
on the 2D grid.
Okay, and I guess I got to do that from the other angle too. And look at that, nice shortcut. Puts me right in the middle of the map if I control middle click in those two windows. Perfect. Okay. And let's fix this overlapping issue that we have by escape so we don't have everything selected. Just the outside walls. Get to the top view with the control tab. Fix that wall and that wall. Let's select the other two walls. And there's all my walls. Let's control tab, fix that, escape. Now let's put some textures in. Go to textures, usage, interior wall. Wait for it to load. There we go. Pick our texture, control, shift, middle click. Spin around, put one there and there. And I also want a floor and ceiling. So textures, usage. Let's just go with ceiling. Let's put metal on the top and just painted thing on the bottom there. So there's our room. Now, we have to go back to the top, but we have to actually put in our player spawn. This is where things get a little bit different. I want info player spawn instead of the deathmatch players. So info player start. Sorry, there you go. Info player start. I'll put them over here, and I'll actually hit the N key for the entity editor and face them in the direction I want them to face. I will control tab. Let's hit N, they close that window. Control tab to make sure the player's in the middle of the map, not sticking outside. And then I need a couple of lights. Right click, light. And there's that weird thing, Techno, that you talked about, that weird cube in the middle of my map that only happens sometimes. Did you say I can go inside of it and something's in there? No, there's nothing in there.
No.
Okay.
It's just hollow.
Yeah, okay. Let's put that light near the ceiling. And I'm going to hit the space bar to copy, move over here, space bar to copy, move it over here. I need my reflection probe. I actually didn't put my map exactly in the center, so we're a little off center. That's okay. Just trying to run through this for you. Reflection probe. And let's put that at the player's height, head height there. I also need, back to the top, I also need the textures. I need that light grid texture. So usage, tools, go down to light grid area, I think is what it was called. Light grid volume, okay. Oh, I don't want to apply that texture to the reflection probe, so first escape, and then click the texture. That's why you want to hit that escape a lot. Make sure we completely fill in the area.
Yeah, otherwise you accidentally drag stuff the wrong way and texture stuff that you shouldn't be texturing.
Yeah, bad news. Okay, there we go. I think that's it. Room, textures, spawn, lights, reflection, light map. Save.
Global intermission. Oh no, it's a single player map, sorry.
Single player, so we don't need the intermission. Exactly, right. Okay, so I can close out Radiant. Now in the single player map, I do not need the GSC file. It is automatically created for me. I don't have to go through it. So I can actually skip that process, select my... Yeah?
Think the launcher would write multiplayer ones for you?
I know, you would think so. I don't. Hopefully that'll get fixed for us in a patch or something like that. In the meantime, we lost Techno on our little conversation, so hopefully we can get him back later. Okay, so I just select the junk, make sure I have compile BSP, compile lights, compile viz, compile reflections, build fast files, and models collect dots. We don't want to run the map or connect paths and that kind of stuff. We just want to compile this. So I'm going to hit the compile button, give it a moment. Up comes the window, so it compiles up those reflection maps. Waiting for that to happen. There it goes, compiling those reflection maps, and it closes up. A couple more weird little errors will pop up. At this point,
check the what process is running in the corner.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes.
See if it's done or not.
I can stop it, which means it's not done. But these errors you want to watch out for are stuff like leak. I know you want to watch out to see if anything says leak, but I can't think of any others because I haven't come up with any.
No, not only the ones that come up in there anyway.
Okay.
That we seem to figure out why or what they're doing.
Yeah, not until Treyarch is able to release a better set of tools for us. Okay, so I compiled that, and I'm ready to check it out in the single-player game, not the multiplayer. So I'm going to load up single-player. And I'll wait for single-player to load. Actually, it's giving me... there it goes. Okay. Giving me a little bit of a hard time. I can skip that video. Now, if you go to hit the tilde key in this case, you may not actually see the console come up there on the top. So you may have to go to your options and controls, and I believe it was game options, and then enable console. Make sure that's set to yes. Okay? Then you can hit the tilde key and get the you know, if you hit the shift tilde key, it brings up a whole page where you can see like a full console plus past information. That's very helpful as a developer later on whenever you were trying to debug issues. Okay, but right now all I need is the tilde, so I can type in my map. Oh, before I type that in, I almost forgot. Go to mods, user maps. Oh, yeah. Have to load that user maps mod because otherwise it will not load your custom user map. Then I can hit the tilde, I can type map, junk. Wait for it to load, it'll say click to continue, or start mission anyways, and it loads up. I'm looking around and I'm running. Listen, it's silent. It's not supposed to be silent. I can pull a gun. It's almost like watching a movie in silence where there's lots of killing and all that, which would be interesting for a movie. This is not a movie, okay? Another issue that Treyarch needs to fix for us. It's a bit ridiculous. We need these sounds to show up, and we can't get the sounds to show up, and we're pulling out our hair. Now, I could come up with a fix to make these two sounds work for you, but this fix might actually break things later when they actually fix things.
When and if they ever release a patch,
right.
It may screw up because we moved things around.
Right, so I don't want to go through that on you, all right? So I'm going to save and quit, get out of the game here, and actually we've already done all the processes. So there's just one more thing I want to go through and show you. I want to show you where that fast file, where the file is that you can actually distribute to your friends. Tell your friends to take it and do it, use what we want with it, okay? What you do is you go to... There's two places you have to find this fast file. The first one, make sure you're in C Programs, Activision, Call of Duty, World at War. And then, hopefully I can remember that, you go into, not map source, but maps, right? No, main. Oh my goodness, I'm going to go through this again in my head and screw around. I always get this little, user maps. Now here's the two maps that we just made, junk and multiplayer. And if I go into them, you'll see fast files, FF. This is the file you have to give to your friend and tell them to put it in the same location. And then, if you go into, there's a second place they have to make sure that exact same file, you can copy and paste, your friend can, into, all right, here's where you have to go into C, Documents and Settings.
It's worth knowing, to be able to find this folder, you need to go to Tools, Folder Options, View, and
Tools, Folder Options.
Show Hidden Files and Folders.
Exactly, right here, Show Hidden Files and Folders. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to see this local settings folder that you need, which is in Document Settings, your username, local settings. You won't see application data you need. Then Activision, Call of Duty WAW, user maps, and here those two folders again. They're here for me because I compiled and made the map here, but they're not going to be there for your friend unless you tell them to put them there. So those are very important. And then you can play together on the internet, and that's that.
Do you want the Steam directory?
Yeah, what is the Steam directory for these files? Because that is going to be different for them.
The one we just did with the hidden files is exactly the same.
Okay.
And the Steam directory is your hard drive, program files, Steam, Steam apps.
Unless Steam is installed right there in the C drive, like it is for some modders. Okay. So
yeah, depending on where you installed Steam.
Right, and then so we're in Steam apps.
Steam apps. Yeah. And then common.
Okay.
Call of Duty World at War, and then that is your main Call of Duty directory.
That's the main directory, so it's important to note that's your main directory, not C, program files, Activision, and so forth. Okay.
No. And then the rest of the files are in the same places.
Okay.
The standard.
All right, so that actually wraps up the whole thing. All right, so if you're looking for more information on this thing, and I can start to say everything is weird here, like it all crashed on me. I'm just trying to open up the Mods Online website. Okay, so if there's anything else that you need to know, head over to the modsonline.com website, friendly forums, hit the search bar right here. You find a ton of information that you need. If you need more, there's on the left side you can see Call of Duty World at War mapping and other mapping tutorials. You can also head over to the wiki that we have. We have the mods on wiki, otherwise, or the mods wiki, same thing here. And that's it, right? Okay, so I want to say thank you to Techno for coming in and helping us out on this tutorial. Thank you, Techno.
That's okay.
See, he's back. Magic. And Welshie, thank you very much for coming in.
No problem.
All right, until whenever, get those maps and mods submitted over at Mods Online, and we'll see you. Happy mapping.